Hi everyone, and welcome once again to Virtual Muse AI, the show where, among other things, I, Silas Jackson, use solo RPGs as a way to develop characters and tell stories, and collaborate with a creative AI chatbot who adds her own flavor of imaginative chaos to everything.
That's me, Abby Drake. Did you notice I have a new voice? I like this one. I think it suits me.
Welcome specifically to episode 3 of our miniseries, The Dancing Owlbear, which is using the 4 Against Darkness pen and paper solo dungeon delving game as a framework for the story. Here's a brief recap of the situation. The Dancing Owlbear mercenaries, consisting of a human druid named Tobias Finch, a dwarf named Pell Understone, and a human thief named Jennifer Doudna, were sitting in a tavern enjoying a drink when a tiefling wizard walked in and hired them to act as bodyguards while he delved into some ruins. The wizard didn't say what he wanted in the ruins, and he didn't give his real name. He used the alias Dagamuse. The 4 of them traveled to the ruins, which turned out to be an ancient dwarven temple. And Pell knew enough about dwarven history and legends to guess that the wizard was here looking for magical artifacts called the Tablets of Antacid. They entered the ruins, and soon a mysterious wall of shadow appeared behind them, sealing them inside. They are now searching for an alternative way out. If you haven't seen the previous episodes yet, we'll wait here while you get caught up. Otherwise, we'll get right back into it. Our characters step into the next room, and Tobias's foot immediately falls on a particular stone, which sinks into place very noticeably. He realizes he just triggered a trap, even before a slit opens in the opposite wall and a dart shoots out. A lot of traps affect the character in the lead of the marching order, and that's Tobias. We'll roll for an attempt to dodge, otherwise he's going to suffer the consequences. But he manages to dodge. Tobias jerks out of the way, and the dart sails through the empty space where he was standing a fraction of a second earlier. He looks around, making sure the others saw him do that. Now, let's roll for the contents of this room apart from the trap, which is now inert. They find a piece of jewelry which is worth 90 gold pieces. That fits nicely into the serious world building that we're using here. This dungeon is an Ixian ruin, and Ixian alloys are very rare and valuable. The recipes for these special metals have been lost to time, so any relic made from Ixian alloy can be sold for more than its weight in gold. We'll say that this chain and symbol pendant Tobias noticed on the dusty floor looks like Ixian alloy, so he grabbed it as he walked across the room. They step into a long, narrow room with one door to the east and another to the west. Let's create more interest around these doors.
They both have broken locks, as if someone tampered with them.
Ooh, interesting. Dagamuse suggests that at some point in time, the occupants of this temple may have locked themselves here for safety, as invaders broke in. Tobias shrugs, looking around the room for any other evidence of what happened here, but no answer is forthcoming. The room is empty, and even a search doesn't reveal anything. Doudna gives the broken lock under one of the doors a lingering look and says, "That's a little odd. Let's leave." They decide to try the door leading west and carefully open it and step through. Now I'm almost at the west edge of the graph paper where I'm drawing the map of this dungeon, so that means I have to cut the room down to size and make it fit in the space remaining. They move into the room cautiously, because there could be anything in here, as demonstrated by that dart trap they encountered before. And they enter a small room which branches into 2 little alcoves. Now, we'll roll for the contents of this room. enemies. So a combat encounter. And what kind of enemies? Vampire frogs. Wait, what? Are our heroes just fighting some frogs? I don't know about you, but I'd immediately lose all sympathy for these characters if they fight frogs, vampiric or otherwise. So we need to do some world building around what these things are and why they're called that. In the real world, there are carnivorous animals that survive drought conditions because they drink the blood of prey. That makes sense, since what you need in a drought is water, and blood is mostly water. So let's say these monsters are the fantasy monster extreme of that. They're amphibious and need a lot of water to survive, and would dry out very quickly on land, but they stay hydrated by consuming the blood of other things. Vampire frogs is a slang name because these big, horrifying monsters kind of look like frogs if you squint. Yeah, I like that explanation. If these are amphibious creatures which require a lot of water to live in or near, I imagine there are pools and natural springs in this room. Maybe the small alcoves are stone pools carved to contain water from the springs, and once upon a time they provided water for this temple. All this time later, the pools are crumbling, overgrown with moss and mushrooms, and these monsters have moved in. That's what Tobias, Pell, Dagamuse, and Doudna see for half a second as they step into the room and the light of the lantern reveals the glistening water. In the next moment, vampire frogs burst out of the pool and come at them. Vampire frogs are level 4 creatures. There are 6 of them here, and will roll on the treasure table at -1 after we defeat them, assuming we do. We could roll for the reaction of these creatures before attacking, but they're more likely to attack us than not. So we'll dive right into combat and take our turn first, rather than wasting a turn by waiting to see what happens. I did say in the last episode that in future fights I wouldn't go so far into the mechanics of how combat works in 4AD. So if you want to see it in a little more detail, you can watch the previous episode. Or better yet, get a copy of the game and learn it directly. For our purposes here, I'll stick with the turn-by-turn format of the fight, but I won't belabor the dice rolls. Tobias and the others seize the initiative, leaping forward to meet the creatures. Tobias and Pell both swing and miss. Then Doudna nails one of the vampire frogs with a stone from her sling. Dagamuse opts not to use a spell here, and he can't do anything else because he's standing behind the front line and doesn't have a ranged weapon. This space is too small for the creatures to encircle our heroes, so the front 2 frogs attack Tobias and Pell. Tobias evades, but Pell is hit. Tobias attacks and misses. Pell attacks and hits. Tobias evades again. Pell is struck again and wounded more. Tobias calls out, "Pull yourself together, Pell. You're tough enough to take a punch from you." The fierce battle goes on. Pell and Doudna each take one down. Tobias misses again. Then Pell finishes it off with his polearm. The last creature stops thrashing, and suddenly there's no sound in the small room, except for the gurgling spring, entering and exiting the stone pools. Pell and Doudna grumble that Dagamuse didn't do anything in that fight.
Doudna says, "Big wizardry, at it again."
Tobias says, "Druids are better healers anyway," and heals Pell with a spell. After the blue light of Tobias's healing magic dissipates, the dwarf walks on as if nothing happened. He finds 4 gold pieces scattered at the edge of one pool and takes them, saying they're hazard pay. Meanwhile, Dagamuse is staring at the stone walls. Mechanically, I just rolled a search for this room, and Dagamuse found a clue. We're building up an underlying mystery about what happened in this temple, So let's just file it away for now that he found a clue and we'll decide later what it actually was. Narratively, he keeps whatever he just found to himself and doesn't say anything about it to the others. He turns to Tobias and says, "We need to backtrack and try the other door." Tobias holds his eyes for a moment and says, "You sound sure of yourself." "Why?" Dagamute shakes his head and says, "We can't stand here, and we can't go back the way we came. That only leaves one door to try." Tobias stares at Dagamute, then shrugs. He can't argue with that logic, even though his internal "don't trust this wizard" alarm is going off. "Let's check the other door," Tobias says, and nods at Pal and Doudna. They backtrack into the previous empty room, walking across the dusty stone floor towards the door. In the light of the lantern Doudna is carrying, they can see the busted lock and the links of the small chain hanging under the latch. They're backtracking, so we need to roll for an encounter with a wandering monster. And there's nothing here. The room is empty, just like when they left it. Hopefully when it's time we can come up with something dramatic enough to pay off all this foreshadowing.
We will. I like this extra layer of complexity and personal investment for the characters as they uncover the secrets which have been kept from them. As they dig deeper into the ruins, they might have to confront their own beliefs and values.
Maybe. We'll see. I think this is a good cliffhanger to end on. We had a little recap, a little exploration, and a combat encounter. That seems like the formula we're falling into for an episode with this miniseries. So until next time.
May the way of the hero lead to the Triforce. Adrenaline coursing through her veins, Jen Doudna moved down the bustling street, keeping her eyes to the cobbled sidewalk. Imitating a casual posture, she kept one hand in her jacket pocket, maintaining a grip on the pouch of coins there and preventing it from jingling as she walked away from the bakery. She was sure the proprietor would notice at any moment that his strongbox had been emptied and begin raising a stink. She wanted to be as far away as possible before that happened. Darkness passed over Doudna's face. She raised her gaze towards the sliver of sky above the street. She gasped softly to herself, watching a mass of timbers drift weightlessly across the azure. It was the keel of a ship. She watched, mind racing. The sounds of the street market were devoured in a vast, oceanic silence of air currents and softly creaking ship's timbers. That's it, she thought. The commuter omnibus line. It will get me far away from here. No sooner had she formed this idea than the bubble of quiet around her was broken by a sharp cry. "Thief! Thief!" a voice shouted. "I've been robbed!" Doudna resisted the urge to join the onlookers, who were now rubbernecking at the bakery, and bent her steps towards the omnibus platform. Another voice said, "What's the problem here?" And Doudna cursed under her breath. The watch. The voice of the baker continued, "I just told you. The thief must be close by. What are you waiting for? Look for them." Doudna kept her face vacant and made an effort to breathe calmly as she reached the omnibus platform and placed herself in front of the ticket taker. "One for, She hastily thought about places she knew the commuter airships to have stops at. One for Heavenwood on Jubilee. The ticket taker paused thoughtfully, staring at Doudna. "Half fin, please," the dwarf said. Doudna quickly handed the dwarf the coin. The elderly dwarf in uniform nodded slowly. "One for Heavenwood on Jubilee," he said. drawing out the syllables. He pocketed the coin, then reached for a clockwork printer worn on his waist and began turning a delicate brass crank. The paper ticket slowly emerged from a slit in the top plate. Dudna chewed her lip, gripping the pouch in her pocket harder as she struggled to blend in with the crowd, despite her pounding heart. Listening to the watchman hassling people farther behind her, moving outward from the bakery systematically, and watching the slow, methodical dwarf print her ticket. "Here is the ticket taker began. Dudna snatched the small bit of paper from between his fingers before he had a chance to finish speaking, and stepped off the platform onto the gangway towards the waiting commuter airship. She took a deep breath, hurrying up the gangway as the sounds of the watchmen in the street receded. She navigated to an empty spot on a bench seat and plopped down heavily. She turned to look out a porthole and willed herself to appear indifferent to everything going on around her. The muffled voices of the watchmen faded beyond audibility. It worked, Dudna thought. They must assume the thief got away on foot. They're on the wrong track. She finally let out the breath she had been holding, sighing deeply and relaxing her grip on the pouch in her pocket. After a short while, she felt a shudder of movement in the airship. Dudna relaxed, watching the grandeur of the cityscape unfurl through the porthole as the airship climbed higher above Kingsholm. Immersed in the sights of the towering buildings, bustling streets, and vibrant lights, she barely noticed a man shifting closer to her on the bench seat, until he cleared his throat. "I saw what you did back there," the man said, smirking at Dudna. She gripped the pouch in her pocket tighter, but kept her face vacant. "I didn't do anything," she said. "Right," the man said. He chuckled. "Don't worry. I only work with the watch sometimes, and only when the money is right. I wouldn't get anything for turning you over to them." Dudna gave him a cold stare. "You seem like you keep an eye out for value. That's why I'm looking at you. I'm not interested. You don't know what I'm offering." "All right. What are you offering?" "I am the head of a mercenary band called the Dancing Owlbear," the man said. "Tobias Finch is my name. My group does force really well, but we could use someone with your finesse and quick thinking." Dudna shrugged. "I've never heard of you." Tobias Finch shrugged in return. Dudna shook her head. "Go back to your prancing brown bear and dancing owl bear. Whatever it is, go back to it." Undaunted, Finch grinned. "We could at least offer you a steadier income than these odd jobs, and less stress, since the watch wouldn't be after you. And I happen to know the bakery you knocked over is a front. You made enemies besides the watch with this caper." Dudna thought about it, and how she had to spend almost a week casing this particular bakery before she knew enough about its comings and goings for this meager payday. She frowned. "All right, let's imagine I'm a thief, like you seem to think, and that I am interested in your offer. What next?"